As the health workers' strike foments with massive impacts across the country, we talk to Labour lawyer and former Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry President Michael Bagraim. Good evening to you, Michael, and thank you very much for your time. I want to just focus on this Labour court action at the moment, reserving judgment in the legality of the strike, because the union, of course, has appealed. They believe that this whole process around their appeal is giving them the cover to be able to strike. Are they right? Are they on the right side of the law or not?
I don't believe so, and thank you for having me on air. I appreciate it. I don't believe they are. Just because you've lodged an appeal doesn't give you the right to carry on breaking the law. The court has said at this point that they have broken the law, and quite frankly, I agree. They have broken the law. Most of the people going on the strike are essential workers. Essential workers can't go on a strike anyway. And also, people aren't actually giving a maintenance service. They're not actually at least being able to service the people out there. That being said, I do sympathize with some of the strikers as to where they're coming from.
And we'll circle back to that particular point because I believe there's a historical element to this. But I want to ask Michael about the possibility of serious liabilities if they're unlawfully engaging in strike action. We've seen the health minister making a link. Of course, the unions are saying, show us your proof. But he's made a link between at least 4 deaths and the strike action and all of the loss and damage to property and so on. What kind of liability could NEHAWU as a union face for this, if all of this is proven to be connected to their members striking?
Well, it's massive. Not only is it criminal liability, but as you've just said, they've destroyed property. They've destroyed hospitals. It's a liability that stretches back to the beginning of the strike. From what I understand is a lot of property has been damaged. Obviously, the state will have to prove what has been damaged, how much it will cost to do it. They've been filming a lot of this. And not only are individuals liable themselves, but clearly the union. Our courts have, for over 15 years now, held unions liable. I don't know if you recall, in Cape Town there was once a strike of security workers who marched down the street and smashed the windows of all the cars. That was the first case of that kind, where the court then held the union liable. The union tried to argue that it wasn't their members, that it was people who were opportunists who joined the strike. And there would have been opportunists there, and there are opportunists here. You know, you have people coming in and saying there's a strike going, and think, well, what can we take or what can we destroy? And we can do it. And unfortunately, that's the liability of a union. They cannot in any way try and deny the fact that it is NEHAWU that's coordinating the strike, and it's NEHAWU that is involved in every single which way. As I'm talking to you, I'm watching the posters with the NEHAWU stickers on them. And those people are all in their uniform and their hats. They have got liability. The state is losing millions and millions of rands because of damaged property. But what is more important are people who are dying. We've seen videos of people being pulled out of an ambulance, of them stopping doctors and nurses going in. There's a lot of liability over here, and this is going to be years of litigation following on. NEHAWU's got problems, big problems, in that they have got blood on their hands.
And that's a really sobering point, Michael, and one that should really give them, the opportunity for pause. But there is an important point one of the leaders made this week, and it goes back to the point I said we'd circle back to, is that the strike is about closing a 3-year hole that was left by negotiations in 2020, and that in that time the earning power of their members has hollowed out, which is why they are holding out as strongly as they are for this 10%. Is there legitimacy to that as you reflect on the 2020 wage, I think 2018 to 2020 sort of wage negotiation period?
Absolutely. And there I sympathize with the unions. I know the public sympathy has swung across to the state and has swung away from the unions. But you've got to understand the history of this, and you've got to understand why people are doing it. And I blame government. I blame government for the cause of the strike. I blame government for the way in which it's handled the current negotiations. And I certainly blame government for its duplicitous behavior that they started in 2018. They came to an agreement. They all shook hands. They came to an agreement, very senior government officials, signed an agreement with the trade union movement for an increase over 3 years. They paid the first year, they paid the second year. And in the third year, they suddenly found a loophole where they couldn't pay any more, and they said, we can't afford it. And they won that case on a loophole. Now, you can't, that's actually disgusting, immoral behavior to go and do this. You shook hands, you signed, everyone walked away, there was no strike, everyone trusted each other, they're in an alliance together. COSATU's in an alliance with the ANC, and the ANC then stabs them in the back in the end. And they've been behaving like that as a government all this time with the union. So you can understand the anger. You can understand them saying, well, we can't trust these people. And you can understand at the end of the day, the cause of the strike. It's the government that has lit the match to make this fire burn. Now what's happening, of course, is they've overdone it. The unions have overdone it this time, and public sympathy is going against the unions.
Yeah, that's a point that they've reiterated often, the sense of seeing government now as a public enemy number one. And what's disturbing, as you say, public sentiment is turning because it seems that it's a by any means situation and scenario that we are in right now. Michael, hopefully we talk again in the future, but I want to appreciate your time tonight. Labour lawyer and former Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry President, Michael Bagraim.